This is the first week the injuries got really bad. We'll give you an update with all of them. We'll talk about every single game and the rankings updates. I will say, if you're interested, looks like I may be the last undefeated team in the Flock League. Fingers crossed. We'll see what Derrick Henry does tomorrow night. But I am not making it out completely unscathed because this Bengals offense is disgusting. And coming into this week, T. Higgins was my wide receiver one. At this point, it looks like he may not be startable. But also coming into this week, the Bengals were insistent. Jake Browning's our guy. We are sticking with Browning, yada, yada. For the love of God, do anything but that. Please, Bengals, go get Winston. Go get Cousins. Actually, the Atlanta Falcons may need Cousins. We'll get to that in a second. But get a different quarterback here because Chase Brown does not look startable. Now, of course, if we look at the running back usage from the PFF snaps, it's going to be deceiving. This game was a blowout. I don't necessarily think we should be looking at the Samaje Perine, Taj Brooks touches and go, the sky is falling, Chase Brown's getting benched. I'm not too concerned about that. Going over and looking at the rankings, it's hard to say Chase Brown's anything close to a running back one at this point, though, because this offense is horrendous. I'm still probably starting Chase Brown this next week, but going to be way more hesitant. You still start Jamar Chase. I still have Jamar Chase ranked as a mid to low end wide receiver one rest of season. He's just simply too good for you to put him on your bench. And then T. Higgins, I started him. He gave me 2.5 fantasy points. He had 2 targets. It may be over for Higgins as a viable option unless they go get a different quarterback. Like if my wide receiver room wasn't so garbage, I would be looking to bench him this next week. Maybe you have a better wide receiver room than I do, and you can actually put T. Higgins on your bench. Now, going over to the Vikings side of this, again, this game's a blowout, right? It's hard to go through and it's hard to say like, oh, okay, we know exactly what to expect now with the Carson Wentz offense. Wentz looked fine, but it's kind of easy to play ahead. I mean, this is a team that had 24 passing attempts to 31 rushing attempts. Like, you're able to run the ball. You're able to be an efficient passer. Jordan Mason, absolute workhorse. Again, he is going to be a must-start running back every single week that you have no Aaron Jones. I have to play against Jordan Mason this next week, which I'm very scared about. Justin Jefferson looks to still be a wide receiver one, still start him every single week. I started Hawkinson myself. I really didn't want to do it, but I just simply didn't have another option. And Hawkinson comes through and he gives you 6 targets. So maybe TJ Hawkinson with no JJ McCarthy is all of a sudden a viable option. I did get nervous, though, when we saw the Josh Oliver touchdown at the beginning of the game, but Hawkinson's still not excited to play him, but I do think he's viable if you were desperate. Going over to the Pittsburgh Steelers, obviously, you don't need to talk about Rodgers. You're never starting him, but the running back usage, Jaylen Warren continues to have everything. I mean, here, if you're looking at the snaps, Jaylen Warren plays a total of 43 snaps in comparison to Kenneth Gainwell at 14. Like, if you would have started Warren, I'm sure that you were frustrated with the Kenneth Gainwell rushing touchdown. That's not something I'm super concerned about going into the future. I really like the fact that Jaylen Warren's getting pretty much everything here as a receiver as well. You have 8.5 points just with his receiving usage in a full PPR format. DK Metcalf, I started this week. And again, if my wide receiver room wasn't horrendous, I would love to bench DK Metcalf this next week. The target volume's just simply not there. You have Calvin Austin and Jaylen Warren drawing more targets. This is back-to-back weeks where it feels like we get lucky with the DK Metcalf touchdown. And I think at this point, it's hard to say that he's anything more than just a flex play based off matchup. Now, going over to the New England Patriots, looking at the running back situation, this is going to be the most interesting thing to observe. You have fumbles for Ramondre Stevenson. Yes, not fumble, fumbles. That's multiple. And on top of this, you actually have Antonio Gibson losing the ball. So you would think, oh, Trevion Henderson, it's his job. This is what this coaching staff was waiting for. They needed an excuse to move on from the veterans and give the rookie that's new in the building the work, which that kind of happened. Trevion Henderson did play about 50% of the snaps, which is more than we've seen from Trevion at any point this year. But the fact we're still getting Ramondre out there, the fact that we're still getting some Antonio Gibson usage, super frustrating. Now, I will say Trevion Henderson still stays on your bench for this next week. However, I'm going to be moving him up my rest of season rankings just because I do think based off the fumbles that we've had from the other backs here, the expectation should be that Trevion Henderson does expand his role in this offense going into the future. Looking at the receivers, I have Stephon Diggs as like my wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 on my team. Not looking good, Chief. I was hoping that the Diggs snap rate was going to improve as the season went on because he was further removed from the torn ACL. However, look at this chart from PFF. What does it show? Nope, not increasing in snaps. I thought the snap data that we had on flockfantasy.com was wrong. I checked it Sunday morning thinking like, yeah, Diggs is increasing his snaps. Nope. Staying the same, if not going down. Super frustrating. No wide receiver here is startable. Kayshon Boutte runs the most routes, but the dude has 3 targets. I don't know why you'd ever start him. The only guy that looks viable is going to be Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry smashed week 1, juked us out week 2, where I said to jam him in your lineup. Week 2, he falls flat. Week 3, you get the 11 targets out of 36 straight made pass attempts. But it looks like in a position where points are super hard to come by, Hunter Henry may just be a must-start player every week. Now, going over to the Indianapolis Colts, Daniel Jones looks good. I mean, this goes to show exactly how bad the Giants organization is. The Colts sitting here 3-0. Daniel Jones, super efficient passer. Daniel Jones still giving you a little bit of rushing upside. I'll reiterate, for fantasy purposes, Daniel Jones is nothing more than just a streaming quarterback. However, we had Jonathan Taylor as our running back 5 in our rest of season rankings coming into this week. That's wrong. Jonathan Taylor at this point has to be a top 3 running back. Now, the receiving usage is even compelling. You have 4 targets. You have 17 carries for 21 opportunities. You're arguably the most talented rusher of the football in the entire NFL. So yeah, Jonathan Taylor, if you got him in round 2, congrats. I mean, if we were to redraft today, I would take Jonathan Taylor inside the top 5 picks. Now, going over and looking at the receivers, Michael Pittman Jr. looks like the wide receiver 1. Tyler Warren has 5 targets. Pittman has 6. Josh Downs has 3. You have Alec Pierce with 5. You have Adonai Mitchell with a couple. So they are spreading the ball out for sure. Like, I still think Michael Pittman Jr. is just going to be a flex play dependent on matchup. But Josh Downs does not look startable. Like, I've been reviewing all your teams in the live streams every night, and it does look like a lot of your leagues, Josh Downs is on the waiver wire. And coming into this week, I was advocating to pick up Josh Downs. But honestly, if you're in a shallower format and you wanted to drop him, I'd be completely okay with it. And side note, of course, if you don't know, I am live streaming answering fantasy football questions every single day, as I always do. I will not miss a single day of live streaming until Christmas. So if you wanted to get your fantasy football questions answered, all you got to do is subscribe to the channel, come out to a live stream, and I'd be super happy to try to help you out. Now let's move this over to our next one. This is going to be the Tennessee Titans offense. Cam Moore to get the pick 6 at the very beginning of the game. Looked like it was going to go downhill quickly. But, I mean, it was okay at the end of the day. A rookie quarterback, not great. He's not a rookie Jaden Daniels. He's not rookie Bo Nix. Looking at the running back usage, Tony Pollard was a must-start running back for us this week. I threw him in my own flex spot just because you're looking at the snap data, and he continuously sees 88 to 90% of the snaps in this Tennessee Titans backfield. Now, that may change once we get Tajay Spears back in, but until Spears comes back, Tony Pollard's a must-start running back every single week in deeper formats like mine, where I'm in a 12-team league with multiple flex spots. I'm going to start Tony Pollard in week 4 with the utmost confidence and really hope we do not have Spears coming back for quite some time. Not saying Pollard's good, but just opportunity is opportunity. And in this game, he had 20 of them. Now, going over and looking at the receivers, yeah, it's time to just throw in the towel on Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley has 7 targets, walks away with 1 reception for 27 receiving yards. Alec Ayamander, yet again, is the wide receiver with the receiving touchdown. I mean, hell, Tyler Lockett even has more receiving yards than what you have with Calvin Ridley this week. So I'm not telling you to cut Calvin Ridley, but he is that last spot on your bench that we get one more performance like this and he's just done. Now, going over and looking at the Houston Texans, CJ Stroud does not look great. Like, obviously, you're never starting CJ Stroud in fantasy. You're really just concerned if he can support Nico Collins. With Nico, he crushes 11 targets out of 38 total pass attempts. He has over 100 receiving yards, 8 receptions, and a receiving touchdown. You're starting Nico Collins, the wide receiver 1 every single week. Going over and looking at Christian Kirk coming into this offense. If Kirk is on your waiver wire, I would go out there and pick him up in deeper formats. We'll give you the waiver wire video coming out on Tuesday morning, so just make sure you're subscribed. But Christian Kirk did manage to have 8 targets in this game. No other wide receiver here would be interesting. Dalton Schultz could be a desperation play at tight ends. For the running backs, I drafted a lot of Nick Chubb in best ball, so that's kind of who I'm rooting for. He's on my bench as well in the Flock League, but it does look like Woody Marks has taken the split in this backfield and made it 50-50. So Nick Chubb, not startable. I don't know if we can cut him. Unless you're in a shallow format, then sure. But Woody Marks, not startable either until we see otherwise. The reality of the situation here is in Houston, Nick Chubb's going to be the first and second down back. Woody Marks is going to get used on third down set in the 2-minute drill, and that's kind of what you can see with the PFF snap data already. Now, going over and looking at the Jacksonville Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence is bad. It's over. Okay, if you're a Jags fan, I'm sorry. If you're a Clemson fan, I'm sorry. But Lawrence is not a good quarterback at this point. Now, maybe I'm just a little bit frustrated with this offense because Byshell Tootin vulture to Travis Etienne rushing touchdown from me. But regardless, let's move by Lawrence. You're never starting him. Travis Etienne, Byshell Tootin. Etienne remains the starting running back here. That has not changed. If you look at the split with the snaps, you have 38 snaps for Travis Etienne. You have 21 for LeQuint Allen and 12 for Byshell Tootin. So Travis Etienne is the lead back. LeQuint Allen is actually out there and he's running routes. He ran 16 routes just out there for obvious passing down scenarios. And Byshell Tootin's the premium handcuff back, where if anything were to occur to Travis Etienne, he would be an automatic start. But with that being said, he is still a thorn in the side of Etienne, and you're going to keep Etienne down as an RB2 in fantasy rather than an RB1. But the thing that we need to talk about here in Jacksonville is the wide receiver one. And no, that's not Brian Thomas, of course. No, of course, that's not freaking Travis Hunter, who they spent the number 2 overall pick on. That is Parker Washington with his 11 targets. Oh, no, you don't care about targets? Maybe go to yards. Oh, it's Britton Strange with his 61 receiving yards. What the hell is happening with the Jags wide receivers? Brian Thomas Jr. looked like one of the best wide receivers in the NFL last season. It may be over. I may be throwing in the towel. This may be the first week, this next week, where I tell you that you can bench him. Knowing myself, I'm stubborn, all right? I'm going to probably keep telling you to play the guy that you drafted in either round 1 or round 2, but God dang, he just looks bad. Lawrence looks bad. The Travis Hunter usage is horrendous. Travis Hunter, you can't start until he proves otherwise. So I'm going to give Brian Thomas Jr. the benefit of the doubt. He's going to be my starting lineup if I had him this next week. But yeah, one more week like this, and it's time for him to go to the bench. And then, of course, do not start Hunter. Going over to the Atlanta Falcons. There was a concerning point where I didn't know Michael Penix Jr. was going to have a yard in this game. But a player I do know is going to have a yard on the Monday night slate is going to be Lamar Jackson. If you're confident that Lamar is going to have a yard on Monday night, I got great news for you. Underdog Fantasy is doing a free Lamar Jackson pick Monday night, more than less than half a total yard. If you use code FLOCK when you sign up to Underdog as well, with the link in either the description or comment section, Underdog is going to add $50 into your account after you play your first 5. Underdog Fantasy is available in almost every single state. They've been my only sponsor on this channel for the past 5 years. Nobody loves Underdog Fantasy as much as I do, and there's no better way for you to support this channel than using code FLOCK with the link in the description or comment section. But let's move back and let's get back to Atlanta. So Michael Penix Jr. looks horrendous. See this? Michael Penix Jr. is 0-4 when the opponents score more than 7 points. Kirk Cousins got some action because this was so much of a blowout. Now, Michael Penix Jr., if you had him as a streaming quarterback, you cut him. You never consider picking him up ever again. This was a great matchup against Carolina Panthers, or at least it was on paper. I would expect Michael Penix Jr. is the starting quarterback for this next week. I don't think Kirk Cousins has any shot at it. Again, as somebody who has T. Higgins on their fantasy team, for the love of God, send Kirk Cousins to Cincinnati so I don't have to deal with Jake Browning again this next week. But Atlanta's probably going to think twice about that. Looking at the receivers, Drake London's going to remain a must-start name. Still super talented wide receiver. Still had 8 targets. Y'all know I traded Drake London before the season started in the Flock League, which is one of the reasons I'm looking like we're going to be 3-0. Absolutely love to see it. But nonetheless, I still think that he's going to be a high-end wide receiver 2 at the very minimum based off volume. And he can still get to being a wide receiver 1 if Michael Penix improves. Darnell Mooney, 11 targets. Super encouraging. Again, the offense was really bad, but still. Kyle Pitts draws 6. Kyle Pitts still a viable tight end option. And then looking at Bijan Robinson, despite this offense being horrendous, Bijan still pretty efficient back here and gave you the usage as a receiver. So you would think in a game like this, Bijan Robinson would have been horrendous, but our guy was still fine. So Bijan still a running back 1 for us, not the running back 1 overall. We'll get to the new guy in a second. But anyway, let's move on. Now, going over to the Carolina side, Bryce Young didn't really have to do much in this game. Now, yes, he had the rushing touchdown from Bryce Young. Not going to act like he was bad. You know, I'm not a big Bryce Young guy, but 121 passing yards means there's just not going to be a lot of production to go around for the receivers. I will say for future games, obviously there will be more passing volume. And Tet had 8 of 24 potential targets. So Tet has like a 33% team target share. Like this is looking like the same target share that you had from elite neighbors last year, as crazy as that sounds. Looking at the running back usage, I know we got a lot of Rico Dowdle, but to be honest with you, the game's so much of a blowout, very similar to the running back usage in Cincinnati. I'm not going to make any big statements about, oh, Dowdle's taken from Chuba Hubbard. I think Hubbard's going to be just fine. And yeah, good game from the Carolina Panthers, of course, but nothing really changes. You start Tet, you start Hunter, and no other player in Carolina is even worth a roster spot, maybe outside of a handcuff running back in a deep league. Going over to the Rams. Okay. Yet again, we got the juke, the head fake with Kyren Williams usage last week. Kyren Williams took a dip in usage and he comes roaring back with a total of 50 out of 66 snaps. He has everything in the 2-minute drill, everything on third downs, everything short yardage. The only usage of Blake Corum was like the meaningless carries in between the 20. So Kyren looks like still a running back one, must-start guy every single week. I was worried about this matchup against Philly, and I was wrong too. Puka Nacua is my new wide receiver one in fantasy football. With the CeeDee Lamb injury, we'll talk about him in a second, it's hard to ignore Puka with 15 targets out of 34 total team pass attempts. The market share numbers, the yards per route run. Like Puka Nacua has an argument to be made to be the most talented wide receiver in the NFL. And maybe that's taking it a one step too far. Maybe that's clearly Neighbors. Maybe that's clearly Chase. Maybe that's clearly Jefferson. But Puka's right there in that conversation. And at the moment, he has better quarterback play than any other wide receiver you would consider. And Devontae Adams getting all the other targets in this offense. There are only 3 players that touch the ball here. It's Kyren, it's Puka, it's Adams. They all remain must-start names every single week. Now going over to the Philadelphia Eagles. Oh, thank God. My Eagles stacks needed this game in my underdog teams. Finally, we get Jalen Hurts with some passing volume. Jalen Hurts still clearly an elite quarterback, 4 touchdowns in this game. And I know for whatever reason, maybe it's the tush push. Maybe it's Philly fans. I'm not a Philadelphia Eagles fan. But if I have to listen to one more sports podcast, if I have to listen to one more talking head, just cry their eyes out at the tush push. I understand the tush push is annoying, but the people in the media crying about it, in my mind, maybe it's just the podcast I'm listening to, but I'm so freaking annoyed with that, to be honest. Like, Jalen Hurts, an elite quarterback in fantasy. Saquon Barkley, I started him this week. I would say it's a little bit frustrating. You only had 46 rushing yards, but Barkley does come through with actually some target volume, which is at least exciting for me. I mean, it comes through with 10 fantasy points in a bad matchup for him in a bad game environment overall. And then A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert all scored touchdowns. A.J. Brown remains somebody that you start every single week, regardless of matchup. We've been discussing this. The thing is with A.J. Brown, you know, if he's not getting the ball, he's going to cry about it. Man, the Eagles need to get him the ball. Devonta Smith, I drafted him a ton in best ball. I would love to say like, oh, Smith, we were right. He's a must-start player yet again, but we've seen the Philadelphia Eagles are going to try to run the ball in this game. They just had to throw it. Now going over to the Jets, Tyrod Taylor let Garrett Wilson do Garrett Wilson things. Like Garrett Wilson had 84 receiving yards out of 197 passing yards in this offense. Like the market share numbers with Garrett Wilson are arguably better than any wide receiver in the NFL right now, not named Nagers or Puka Nacua. Phenomenal. I guess you can throw him in with Tat. I still think you have a severely capped ceiling with Garrett Wilson here just because the passing volume in this offense is not great. I will say the passing volume's the exact same with Tyrod Taylor it is with Justin Fields. Looking at the running back usage, Breece Hall gets 21 rushing yards this game. Now, he does kind of save his day from a PPR aspect of this with 6 targets. So Breece Hall still probably remains a must-start running back 2 for you here, but it will be something to continue to monitor the split with him and Braylon Allen. Braylon Allen did play 23 snaps. Isaiah Davis played 9 snaps, and Breece Hall is at 38 snaps out of a potential 69. So Breece is playing about 55% of the snaps right now for New York. Going over to the Bucs side of this, Bucky Irving, this had to be his highest workload game ever, right? You get 29 touches. Efficiency, not good for Bucky here, but frankly, it doesn't matter. We know Bucky Irving. We know that he's going to have big plays. And on top of this, if you are getting this type of workload, he gives you a crazy high floor regardless. Looking at the receivers, I was hesitant to start Igbokwe this week because Shefty came through and he said he was possibly going to be limited in this game. They had no option to get Igbokwe to be limited because Mike Evans goes down with the hamstring. You had no Godwin. You had no Jalen McMillan. They're telling us Godwin may be back in week 4, but Godwin's going to take a little bit of time to get ramped up. I'm not expecting Godwin to be back next week and this to be somebody you automatically jam into your lineup. Based off what we saw with this Mike Evans injury, I'm expecting Evans to miss time here. And honestly, the team I was playing has Mike Evans in week 4, so fingers crossed that Mike Evans does miss time. But if that is the case, Igbokwe is going to be an auto lock. Like if you have Godwin his first week back and no Mike Evans, Igbokwe may push to be inside the top 12 in my wide receiver rankings. And then nobody else is interesting here. I would still hold on to Rachaad White, given the fact that you have the elite handcuff status. Going over to the Raiders, Geno Smith shows some signs of life. I'm going to have to do a deep dive here with Trey Tucker, going to be honest with you. Here's my gut reaction, because we've seen this before with Trey Tucker, right? Go back last year where we actually see Trey Tucker have some massive performances followed up with nothing. My gut reaction is I'm going to say, you know what? This is kind of a best ball play. If you were crazy enough to draft him on Underdog and you get this 40-point performance, go nuts. Super happy for you. But in your regular redraft league, how the hell are you going to put him in your lineup this next week? We go back and look at what we had last season. Week 3 against Carolina gave you 22 points. Week 4 against Cleveland, 15. And then he had 4, 0, 7, 5, 2. So just like last year, after the big performance, he's probably going to be really low in my rankings this week. I'm probably not going to trust him. I'm probably going to get yelled at in the comment section because of it. But this is a big play wide receiver. Jacoby Myers is still going to be the number 1 target earner here. If it's not Brock Bowers, it'll be Myers. If it's not Myers, it'll be Bowers. So great game for Trey Tucker. I mean, if you're a Raiders fan, I'm sure it was exciting. If you drafted him in Underdog Best Ball drafts, congrats. But I don't know. Still starting Myers, still starting Bowers, not starting Trey Tucker. He will be worth the waiver wire pickup, though, just to see if we're wrong and just see if he continues to get better. He's only 24 years old. Look at the running backs. I'm throwing in the towel. Ashton Jeanty is moving down my rankings. Ashton Jeanty, I wanted to look at the fact he was playing like 80% of the snaps. Go, you know what? It's his first 2 games in the NFL. Offensive line looks bad. He himself looks good. Keep plugging away. Keep plugging away. Keep plugging away. Ashton Jeanty still high-end RB2 at the very least. Jeanty has nothing as a receiver in this game. 6.3 fantasy points. And a game in which the Raiders offense was able to move the ball down the field. If you're going to have 0 targets and you're in a garbage offense, your floor is incredibly low as well as your ceiling. So Ashton Jeanty, we just nuked in our rankings. Obviously, the updated rest of season rankings will come out on YouTube tomorrow morning, so make sure you're subscribed. And already they're posted on flockfantasy.com, so you can check them out there. Now, let's move over to the Commander side of things. This game's a blowout, right? So it's tough for me to take too much away from it. Mariota, hindsight being 2020, 40 rushing yards and the rushing touchdown, looked like he should have been a great streamer. I want to talk about 3 things. I want to talk about, 1, the receivers. Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, both look like borderline flex plays. I'd be definitely a lot more excited if you have Jaden Daniels in this next week. I probably don't want to play either guy if you have Marcus Mariota. The running back situation is what's going to be very interesting. I wish this game was closer. I wish I could come through and go, oh, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, 23 snaps. Chris Rodriguez, 22 snaps. Jeremy McNichols, 15 snaps. I know exactly how they're going to use these running. I don't. This wasn't a real football game. This was a blowout. Obviously, we were saying coming into this week, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt's a running back that's exciting for his long-term upside, but you do not want to start him until you actually see it. And I would still say the same thing right now with Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. This next week, do not put him in your starting lineup. I wouldn't cut him by any means. Y'all know I traded him for Tony Pollard a couple weeks back. Going over to the Green Bay Packers, like, dear God. How the hell do you lose this game? I started Josh Jacobs, my running back 2 behind Barkley. Jacobs, very exciting to see that we actually get the receiving involvement this week. That's not something that we had through the first 2 weeks, but this is the first game that we have had from Josh Jacobs where he did not score a touchdown since week 9 last year. But if I'm getting this type of receiving usage, I'm honestly a little bit more excited about my floor. Looking at tight end, Tucker Kraft comes back down to earth, but he was banged up in this game. I think Kraft's going to be better next week. And Matthew Golden is on the way up. You can actually see this chart from PFF. Matthew Golden playing more and more snaps every single week. Matthew Golden leads this team in receiving. And obviously a lot of this has to do with the Jaden Reed injury, but you know what? Jaden Reed's not going to play next week. Jaden Reed's not playing the week after. Jaden Reed's not playing the week after. So Matthew Golden in deeper leagues looks like he can eventually be a start here. Going over to the Brown side, you're never starting Flacco. No worries talking about quarterback. Running back, Judkins dominates. Now, I had to go up against Judkins this week, so I was kind of mixed emotions. I drafted a ton of them in best ball drafts this year, buying the dip, of course. 18 carries out of 19 potential. 94 rushing yards out of 96 rushing yards for this team, and he comes away with the rushing touchdown. I would love to sit here and tell you I'm about to be the richest man on this planet. I'm going to be richer than Bill Gates because Quinshon Judkins is going to be a running back one the rest of the way. Now, the truth of it is, this is still one of the worst offenses in the NFL, if not the worst. And looking at the running back usage, Jerome Ford is the third down back. Quinshon Judkins is the first and second down back. The only running back that is worth a roster spot here in Cleveland is Quinshon Judkins. If you picked up Dylan Sampson week 1, go ahead and drop him. If you have Jerome Ford, go ahead and drop him. Because if Judkins were to get injured, then it just turns into a committee in one of the worst offenses in the league. But Judkins probably a running back too the rest of the way. Looking at the receivers, I mean, I have Jerry Jeudy on my bench, and dear God, I never want to ever put this guy in my starting lineup. Harold Fannin, David Njoku still at the top of the team with receiving. You do have David Njoku running 29 routes, Harold Fannin running 20 routes, but David Njoku more that inline blocking tight end where Harold Fannin is getting some of that slot usage. Going over to the Chargers, this is also the reason we may be richer than Bill Gates. Quentin Johnston, thank you God for learning how to catch the football. You are going to make my family unbelievably wealthy. Like Quentin Johnston, thank you, my friend. 10 targets, 6 receptions, 89 receiving yards. Look at this tweet from Underdog. Through the first 3 weeks, Keenan Allen, 28 targets, 19 receptions, 194 receiving yards, and 3 receiving touchdowns. Quentin Johnston, 24 targets, 15 receptions, 239 receiving yards, 3 receiving touchdowns. Ladd McConkey, 21 targets, 15 receptions, 163 receiving yards, and 0 touchdowns. This is a large enough sample where I'm ready to do it. Ladd's getting nuked. If you took him in round 2, I'm sorry, it was a bad pick. Now, I would still rank him as the top wide receiver in Los Angeles. I hope he's not. I hope it's Quentin Johnston. But I think we have a large enough sample with what we had at the end of last season that I'm going to give Ladd the benefit of the doubt. It's not like he's looked horrendous. Now, going over to the running back room, Amari Hampton's a league winner. It's over. Najee Harris, done for the season. We've been talking about this for a while now. Obviously, did not expect it to play out this way. But with Hampton, you have 25 opportunities. And I want to give you the spiel that we've been saying over the past few weeks on why you don't want to trade him away, why you do not want to give up on him. First round NFL draft capital. Elite athlete at the NFL Combine. Was a bell cow in college. Has the size to be a bell cow in the NFL. And he goes to a great offense. And now, after the Najee Harris injury, Amari Hampton is going to be at the very top of the league with his usage. So I have Amari Hampton ranked over Ashton Jeanty now in my rest of season rankings. I think I can make a strong argument that Amari Hampton is a running back 1. And he's a must-start running back every single week going into the future. And then Justin Herbert must-start quarterback every single week. Now, moving over to the Denver Broncos, we do have Bo Nix coming through with only 153 passing yards, but you do get the 33 rushing yards, so at least the rushing floor is still there. I mean, the first half, it looked horrendous. I was about to send out some wild tweets saying, oh yeah, this is CJ Stroud. This is the complete fall off after year 1, which it's still kind of there. Like Bo Nix at this point is trending towards just being a streaming quarterback. Looking at running back, Dobbins still seeing absolutely everything. J.K. Dobbins plays 35 out of 52 snaps. He sees 11 carries in comparison to RJ only at 2. So Dobbins remains a must-start running back for now. RJ is still the running back I would prefer in the long term. And then wide receiver Courtland Sutton is the only startable name here. Would not look at any tight ends, even Evan Ingram at this point with the back injury. Looks like he's close to being cuttable. Now, the reason I may be 3-0 in my fantasy league this week, the reason I may be the last undefeated team is the Seattle Seahawks DST came through in a big time way. And please let me know in the comment section what defense you started, what defense you went up against, because that was the storyline here in week 3. Thank you, Seattle. Salute you. Looking at what we have with the quarterbacks, obviously you're never starting Darnold. Doesn't matter. Running backs, Kenneth Walker was an immediate must-start running back after Zach Charbonnet was ruled out. Do not look at the usage. Do not look at the fact, oh, Kenneth Walker only plays 30 out of 57. It doesn't matter. This is another one of those blowout games. Kenneth Walker comes through with multiple rushing touchdowns, had big plays as well. They just got called back due to offensive holding. Looking at Jackson Smith-Njigba, it's hilarious, right? If you told me Mason, JSN, he only has 6 targets. What do you think happens in fantasy? I go, oh, he has 6 targets, I guess. Well, we get 8 points, 9 points. 7. No, JSN comes through, drops 20 points regardless. Jackson Smith-Njigba, mid wide receiver 1 to upper end wide receiver 1 for us rest of season. Absolute lock. Nobody else here in Seattle is interesting other than the starting running back and JSN. Going over to the Saints side of things. Again, I don't want to be looking at the usage. It's a complete blowout. Why does it matter? I would say the Saints are crazy to have even played Alvin Kamara 54 snaps. Like, what the hell are you doing? Alvin Kamara should not have been on the field starting in the second quarter for this team. But Kamara still had 18 carries. Kamara still had a couple targets out of the backfield. He still remains a must-start running back for you every week. And the Saints obviously have a very bad offense, but the Seahawks have a great defense as well. Chris Olave dominates with target volume, 14 targets, but yet again, only 57 receiving yards. Whether this is Olave's fault, whether this is the fault of Spencer Rattler, it's probably a combination of both. Olave's yards per target looks like it's a yards per carry mark for most running backs. It's hilariously bad. Going over and looking at the Niners, Mac Jones, you're never starting him, but he actually did support the only 2 players you would have considered in fantasy this week with CMC and Ricky Pearsall. Pearsall was clearly a must-start name as soon as Juwan Jennings was labeled as out. Comes through 8 receptions, 117 receiving yards. If Jennings is going to miss more time, Ricky Pearsall will be an auto jam for you. Now, the one thing I adjusted here is how am I going to look at McCaffrey with 15 targets and not rank him at RB1 rest of season? Like, obviously, I have Saquon Barkley on my team. I don't have McCaffrey. Sal went out there and Sal took CMC at 5 over Barkley. I thought he was a madman at the time. I thought he was crazy. But 15 targets, 17 carries, 32 total opportunities. If McCaffrey's going to be the running back 1 in my rankings every single week, might as well have him there rest of season. And then how likely is he really to get injured? Because if he was that likely, I don't think they'd be using him this much. Going over to the Cardinals, Kyler Murray, only 159 passing yards, but he did give you at least the 37 rushing yards, so the rushing floor is there. Obviously, I don't want to dance on the grave of anyone. I don't want to be an ass, but I have a lot of Trey Benson in fantasy football, and it looks like Trey Benson's going to be winning a lot of money. You have James Conner out for the season, or I should not say that. James Conner looks like he's going to be out for a long time. At the time of this recording, I have no idea how much time that is. But I'm already prepping my rest of season rankings. I've already nuked Conner. I've already moved Trey Benson up in a big time way. Pretty serious ankle injury. They needed a cart. He did not look good on it. Trey Benson, he could have had a rushing touchdown here. Got stopped at the goal line a couple times. It was a little frustrating. I was sitting there rooting for him to score just for my best ball teams. But Benson looks like he's going to be an absolute jam at running back every single week. And then looking at Marvin Harrison Jr., 6 targets out of 34 pass attempts for Kyler Murray. Marv is a borderline flex play, nothing more. This is the continued trend of what we had last season, where Marv, yes, week 1 comes with a big receiving touchdown, super exciting, blah, blah, blah. Everybody gets bought in. But the volume wasn't there week 1. The volume's not there week 2. The volume's not there week 3. So Marv is a boom bust wide receiver, feast or famine. Marv should be viewed almost the same way as Jameson Williams. He's a flex play. And some weeks in bad matchups, you won't even want to play him. Now, Trey McBride is still my tight end 1 rest of season, still an absolute auto lock. It's nice to see him score the receiving touchdown because obviously he doesn't score many, but just because he hasn't in the past doesn't mean he can't in the future. Going to the Bears-Cowboys game. The Cowboys probably have the worst defense in the NFL. for Caleb to look as bad as what he has so far this season, just to come out and have about 300 passing yards on 28 pass attempts, to have 4 passing touchdowns and 0 interceptions, after we saw Russell Wilson with this Cowboys defense a week ago throw for 450 passing yards. The Dallas Cowboys defense is the worst defense in the NFL. They are the Cincinnati Bengals from last season. You start every single player that you have going up against the Dallas defense. Looking at DeAndre Swift, Swift does give you 13 rushing attempts in comparison to Kyle Monangai at 6. You have DeAndre Swift with 3 receptions for 45 receiving yards, so at least giving you that baseline floor as a receiver. Swift looks like he is losing some of this backfield, though, which is an interesting note. DJ Moore, it's over. We had the trade rumors in Chicago earlier about DJ Moore potentially being moved. Rome Odunze is the clear alpha. Luther Burden gives you the big play, get the 101 receiving yards and the receiving touchdown for best ball teams. I'm going to talk about Luther Burden in the waiver wire video. Just make sure you're subscribed, because it looks like if Moore leaves, Luther Burden could be a must-start name every single week. Now, going over and looking at the Dallas side of things, it all hinges on CeeDee Lamb. So CeeDee Lamb gets injured, goes back in the game, goes out of the game, goes back in the game, goes out of the game. The time of this recording on Sunday night, what we are told at the moment is this CeeDee Lamb injury is not serious. Sounds like CeeDee Lamb may even play this next week. Looking at screenshots of the injury on Twitter, looks gross, looks horrific, to be honest with you. But if Lamb plays next week, he's in your lineup, I'll say that much. But if he does not play, it means Jake Ferguson is a must-start tight end. It means George Pickens projects out as a high-end wide receiver 2, low-end wide receiver 1. So we're going to have to wait for more updates with CeeDee Lamb. Of course, just subscribe. I'll be live streaming every single day answering questions, giving you those injury updates. But yeah, Ferg, 14 targets here, looks phenomenal. And then the running back usage, Javonte continues to be a must-start running back every single week. You have 15 opportunities for Javonte Williams in this game. But I think that's all I got for you. I really appreciate you. And again, if you have not done so already, we are on our path to 300,000 subscribers. You can help us get there. Drop a like on this, subscribe to the channel. And if you wanted to take advantage of those Underdog promos, right now they have a Lamar Jackson free pick, more than less than half a total yard for the Monday night game. And on top of that, if you use code FLOCK when you sign up to Underdog Fantasy, you are going to get $50 added to your account after you play your first 5. Underdog Fantasy is available in almost every single state. You can find the link in the description and comment section. But I really appreciate you. I would love to hear how you did in the comment section, and I would love to see you out in the live stream tomorrow.